Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Worth Talking Movies. As always, I'm Andrew, joined by Cade. And for the first time in a while, we're doing another tier list. But unlike last time, we're not alone on this one. No, this time, we're brought a couple of friends along for the ride. Blue and Myka, would you like to introduce yourselves to our loving audience?
Hi, I'm Myka, Last Girl Mikachu. I'm excited to be here. Thank you guys for having me again.
I'm blue. That's about it.
Blue's just along for the ride here. All right.
Honestly, yeah, I just love tier lists.
All right. Well, and that is what we are doing. We're doing our second edition of our tier list, and we're doing a series that's near and dear to all of our hearts. On this one, we're doing the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, before
Yeah.
we get into it, a couple of ground rules. Number one, we decided we're not doing any of the Disney Plus TV shows in this list just because we thought that was maybe a little too much content. So that's rule number one. Rule number two is we're not doing anything that's technically now MCU canon because of the multiverse fiasco going on. So we're not doing the Tobey Maguire Spider-Mans or the 20th Century Fox X-Men, etc. We are sticking with core MCU here, starting with Iron Man and ending with the latest edition, obviously being Deadpool and Wolverine. And with that, shall we get into this, folks?
Yes,
Absolutely.
sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's get started. All right, first up on the list, we have the original Iron Man from 2008. Yeah, this has always been a great film for me. I think it's definitely one of my favorite MCU films. I love the plot. I love Robert Downey. He's great as Iron Man. I think everyone's great in this movie. I would consider it an S tier film, but what about you guys?
I think it's a good classic, a good starting point for the MCU. I would put it in A to be safe because there are a lot of good S tier films on this list.
And I'm kind of leaning towards agreeing with Micah on this one. I like the original Iron Man, and I think it's definitely important because it did kind of kick off this decade plus odyssey of the MCU. But I feel like there's better. I don't know. What do you think, Blue?
Well, I did this tier list like about a year ago, and I'm looking at my list I did, and I put Iron Man as B tier. But now that I think about it, it was the kickstart of the MCU, and it did it really well. I might even push it up to A because I do really like the setting and standards of the movie.
Yeah.
But I'm still leaning towards B because I feel like there are better options.
So, what do we want to go with? Do we want to stay A or do we want to stay high B?
I'm willing to give it an A.
I think A is a safe spot.
I'd push it to A as well then.
All right. So, starting off with our first A edition. I'm sure we're probably going to have quite a few of those because for the longest time, the MCU was pretty bulletproof, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
But next on the list is not one of such films because we have The Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton. I always forget this movie exists. What about you guys?
Same. I think I watched it the last time I watched it was a kid. I barely remember this one.
I kind of used to like this when I was younger, back when it first came out, but yeah, it's just become more forgettable for me over the years. And I honestly think Edward Norton's okay in it, but yeah, it's definitely not one of the stronger MCU films. I'm willing to give it maybe D, maybe C minus. What would you guys give it?
I'd say D because I wouldn't say it's horrible, but it's forgettable. So I'd say D.
Yeah, I'd say D. Again, Edward Norton doesn't have anywhere near the charm that Mark Ruffalo has as the Hulk.
I'd also give it a D, but I do have to say the Hulk design is one of my favorites.
I'll agree with you on that one.
Yeah, I agree. All right, well, I guess that'll go in D tier. All right, well, next up on the list, we have Iron Man 2. When this movie first came out, I wasn't a fan of it, and as I've watched it more over time, I think it's okay. I think that it just suffers from the same problem that other superhero films have had, like Spider-Man 3, Batman versus Superman, where you're including too many characters and storylines in one thing that it just gets way too overcrowded.
Yeah. I think it this one feels like it should have been not should have been, but it feels like it was a test run for the Avengers because they brought in this is the one that they brought in Scarlett Johansson for Black Widow and stuff. And I feel like that was watching it the first time, I was so enthralled with her and I loved it, but that was the excitement of it. I feel like they didn't do her justice bringing her in like that.
Well, because she had to share the spotlight with so many other characters, because aside from Iron Man and Pepper, War Machine, you have Whiplash, Justin Hammer, Nick Fury. There are just so many characters to include in one film.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another thing that this movie does not do great, in my opinion, is its villains. I mean, as somebody who loves Mickey Rourke and Sam Rockwell as actors, not two of the more memorable or even that interesting villains in the MCU. I think we can agree in Whiplash and Justin Hammer.
Yeah, I agree.
Very forgetful.
It's not one that I'm gonna go and when rewatching the MCU, I kind of just watch Iron Man 1 and then go on to the next one. It's not, I don't really watch Iron Man 2.
So what are we thinking? Another D?
I'm willing to give it a C tier, but if you guys prefer D, we can do that.
I think C just because of ScarJo.
Also, don't forget about the action scene at the end where they
Mm,
have like the laser spinning. That was
Oh,
amazing.
yeah,
yeah,
I gotta
that's
give you
true.
that one. Yeah.
I'd give it a C just because of that.
All right. Well, we are going to give that a C. All right. Now we are on to the original Thor.
That one was, I think, really good. It's a little, I want to say, not outdated, but because it was made, what, early,
2011, I think.
I was gonna say early 2010s. It feels like, obviously, if they were gonna do it now, it'd be epic, but I don't know. There's something about it that just feels classic and good, well-rounded Thor movie.
Yeah, and I can't remember who put it like this, but somebody I knew said this movie made Thor cool because in the comics, I think Thor was kind of seen as a little bit more of the one of the more ridiculous Marvel heroes.
Hmm.
The funny thing is, with a movie like this, I used to not really be into superhero films where the hero loses their powers at some point in the movie. I used to not be a fan of that, but now I look back at this movie and I kind of enjoy it a lot more than I did before. So for me, I think it's more of a B, maybe C plus.
I agree.
I'm stuck between a C or a B because I really don't remember what happened in this movie.
Well, I mean, something you got to give this movie credit for is it gave us, again, not only Thor, but Loki as well, two characters who would go on to kind of be MCU mainstays.
That is true.
That is true.
So just for a historical perspective, I think you got to give it at least a C.
Yeah, I think that's a good ranking for it. Hey, I'll give it a C.
Yeah, I'd go with C as well, I guess.
All right, well, now moving on to Captain America, the First Avenger. I think this movie is pretty decent. I don't think it's the best Captain America movie. I know some people do, and yeah, hey, that's fine. But yeah, I think that this is a decent movie. I don't necessarily love the villain, and I really like Hugo Weaving as an actor, but I just wasn't a big fan of Red Skull. That might be an unpopular opinion, but overall, I think it's decent.
I think it was a good Captain America movie, but it's not my favorite. I would rank it a B tier because it is good. It does set up the Avengers kind of thing and give really good backstory. But yeah, it just something about it is like I'll watch it. I'll rewatch it, but it's not my favorite Captain America.
I'm kind of in the same boat on that one. I find it kind of interesting that, and we'll get to this over time. The Captain America trilogy of films gets better, in my opinion, with each entry. And the fact that it starts off with this one, which is still solid, if not amazing, is a testament. I mean, I really like the action in this. I like all the characters, but it's not, in my opinion, that upper echelon of the truly great MCU movies that we're going to be getting to shortly. So I'm leaning B tier too. What do you think, Blue?
I think this is one of the most underrated MCU movies because it introduced so many like star characters like Bucky and obviously Cap, and we also got Peggy from this. I also agree with you, Kate, about Red Skull. I mean, I like Red Skull as a villain, but I feel like he was underused in this movie.
Yeah, but I will say this. I do like the ending of this movie when he wakes up and finds out that he's been asleep for almost 70 years. That to me has always been a good ending, just the way they executed it. So,
Oh yeah.
yeah, so with that, yeah, I'm willing to give it a B tier.
Yeah, B tier.
Yeah, no arguments here.
All right, well, next up is the original Avengers movie. I actually, for a little while, I was kind of very critical of this movie, but it's definitely grown on me more over time because I really loved it the first time I saw it back when it came out. But yeah, I think it's really good. I don't think it's the best Avengers movie of the four that we've gotten, but I think it's definitely good still, and I think it's definitely significant.
I think just for the fact that this was the first uniting of the Avengers and the fact that it's pulled off pretty damn well, I think it has to kind of be an S tier because it what did show that, oh, this whole, Marvel Universe thing has some serious legs to it, doesn't it?
I think that it was a really good stepping stone, like setting place, building block for the Avengers movies. I would give it an A just because it's not my favorite Avenger movie, but it does deserve that respect of a S tier. So like I'd give it like an A plus, almost S, just because I know that there's going to be a lot of S tiers, but I don't know, it felt very rushed in my opinion. I love the Avengers, the first one. I love it a lot, but it did feel like it was rushing, mashing these characters together, if that makes sense.
I can totally see that. I think it's a very simple story. I don't know. The movie was pretty groundbreaking in 2012, though. I don't know how old I was, maybe 10. I remember hearing about it everywhere, but I didn't get to see it at the time. But I think a few years later I got to watch it. And, it's a good movie. It still holds up. But Design-wise, I'd never liked the design of like Cap's suit, for example, or like how Hulk looked,
Hmm.
or Loki had his horns. That was pretty cool. I'd probably give this movie a B. It's probably my least favorite Avengers movie. There's just something about it.
It's got a very generic like superhero movie
Exactly.
feel to it that's not like it's yes, it deserves that respect because it is the first Avengers, but it feels like they were taking a chance releasing the Avengers, not knowing if people were gonna be super about it. But it feels like that. It feels like it was a safe storyline, a safe. This is superhero stories. They go like this when you're trying to mesh everybody together. And there you go. Here's that simple storyline. And whether they did it first or whoever did it first, it feels like one of those cookie cutter
hmm
movies. But it does deserve that respect because it did build the rest of the Avengers in the MCU.
Is this the first movie where they introduced multiple heroes in one kind of setting on the, I guess, live action?
I guess technically not because we had Watchmen before this one.
But yeah, that's true.
What do we want to say? Do we want to say A, since it seems like our general consensus is it's good, but it's none of our favorite of the Avengers quadrilogy?
Put it in B. Ignore everyone else. Put it in B.
B for bad.
I'm sorry, Blue. That's going in A tier.
No.
Well, next up we have Iron Man 3. I know that a lot of people really hate on this movie, and I get why. I get that people didn't like the Mandarin twist, how we found out he wasn't the actual Mandarin. But other than that, I think it challenges Tony Stark in an interesting way. I think it's interesting to see him use his brain more than just his suit. I also do like the big showdown at the end with all the other Iron Man suits. I don't think it's necessarily one of the better MCU films. I think it's definitely an improvement over Iron Man 2, but yeah, it's just kind of for me, it's more of a B tier film.
That's exactly what I was thinking because I think this movie gets too much hate for the Mandarin twist. Even still today, you still see people griping and moaning about it. I'm like, this is probably a decade ago. Why are you still this obsessed about it? I thought the action was really good in this. Again, I liked seeing Tony Stark being challenged on a different level, like how you were talking about, Cade. I loved the final battle with all the Iron Man suits versus the Mandarin's mutants. I loved the interactions between Tony Stark and the kid whose name is eluding me at this moment.
Harley.
Harley, thank you. Yeah, I thought a pretty solid third entry in the Iron Man trilogy. I think it gets way too much hate.
It's not one that I watch often or have rewatched multiple times, I'd say. It feels a little bit like the Thor of the Iron Man movies. Like obviously we see him using his brain more than relying on his suit, but I feel like it just is it's I don't know, it's lacking something. I know I don't hate it, but it's not one that I'm gonna rewatch.
From my understanding, this movie is just about Tony Stark with PTSD. I do like
Yeah, there's something
the
to that.
I do like the Christmas setting though. That was nice. Again, Robert Downey Jr. kills it as Iron Man, as always in this one. I don't like the Mandarin twist. I'm just gonna be one of those guys. I don't like it. Even the main villain, Aldrich Killian, who like shoots fire or whatever. I did not like that. Overall, I think it's like a C at best. Just kind of forgettable.
Well, and just adding on to that, Blue, with Aldrich Killian, I think that his whole motivation is kind of similar to what we've seen with a bunch of other superhero films. Well, maybe not a bunch, but some. Like if you look at Batman Forever with the Riddler, or if you look at The Incredibles with Syndrome, you have this character who used to really idolize the hero, but then he feels like he was ignored or just wasn't taken
Mhm.
seriously. So when you watch this movie now, even if you've never seen it before, it's kind of hard not to think, ugh, I know where this is going.
Also, his motives were not even like explained properly. Like he wanted to turn everyone into an extremist. So he's basically the lizard.
Yeah, that's one way of looking at it.
Well, now that you put it like that, now I got to knock it down to a C too, because yeah, I hadn't even considered that aspect.
Yeah.
I put this at a C.
Yeah, I'll also put it at a C. I like it better than Iron Man 2 still, but okay, I'll put it at a C. All right, well, next up we have Thor: The Dark World. I have never had a strong opinion about this movie, in all honesty. I don't think it's the worst Thor movie, but I found the villains, the Dark Elves, very forgettable. I never really loved the romance between Thor and Jane, in all honesty. I mean, it's got some decent moments. I think Tom Hiddleston is still great as Loki, but yeah, it's just never really been that good of a movie to me.
I agree. I feel like the romance was a little pushed because later on in other movies, she kind of isn't. It feels like a pushed thing to give something to motivate during his movies, if that makes sense. They do have their cute bits, but it doesn't feel like it would have worked anyways. But I mean, I think it was all right. It's okay.
I really don't have that much to say on this one because I'm pretty sure I've seen this movie precisely one time and it left zero impact on me.
If you look up the word boring on Google, this is the first result. I do like Tom. I think Tom was really good in this movie. Tom Hiddleston as Loki. He did really good. But other than that, the movie was just boring. Put that in F tier for me.
Well, hold on, Blue, slow down.
No. Put it in F tier.
Honestly, I'm down. Put it in F.
I mean, I'm not going to argue because, again, if a movie, at least with the Hulk, there was a couple of things that I remember about it. This one, again, nothing sticks out in my mind about this one.
Mm-mm.
Personally, I think an F is a little harsh, but okay, I'll put that in F tier.
Oh, you think that's harsh? Wait till we get to what I consider the absolute bottom of the barrel for the MCU.
Yes, I know what you're talking about. Well, next up we have Captain America: The Winter Soldier. I enjoy this movie quite a bit. I think it's the best Captain America movie, in all honesty. I know some people might say Civil War, but this one's always been my favorite. I really like Steve's arc. I like how he reunites with Bucky. I thought the Winter Soldier as a villain was really cool. Actually, I really like Robert Redford in this movie too. I also love all the action sequences, the fight choreography. Yeah, I think that this is one of the better MCU films.
This is definitely an S tier for me. This is one of my favorite Captain America movies, MCU movies. I love The Winter Soldier. I love every bit of it. And the fight choreography, oh my God. My niece and I, she's 6 years younger than me, but we would try and practice and do this all the time, constantly. She's the one who did the Bucky and Captain America cosplay shoot with me when I was doing my TikToks as Captain America, and you see the Bucky body, that's her. It's her body. She's my body double. And then it would pan to me as Bucky for TikToks. But yeah, it's one of my favorites, and I've watched it over a million times.
I also agree that this is S tier for me. For me, the reason I love this movie so much is because I'm also a huge fan of Jack Ryan or the Jason Bourne movies. This movie is basically, what if we took a superhero movie and made it a spy thriller, and it works so damn well. Plus, you get the great and hate chemistry between Captain America and Black Widow. You get the introduction of Falcon. You get the introduction of Crossbones. You get the killer final act with um, the hell are they called?
The Helicarriers.
The Helicarriers. Thank you. This is a phenomenal movie, and in my opinion, is still top five, if not top three, MCU movies of all time. I'm gonna go that far.
Yeah, it's an S tier for sure. I think the Winter Soldier is probably the best part of this movie. And then I also really like the Hydra infiltration. I feel like that was pretty interesting. It's the only movie my parents like to watch in the Marvel universe, so that says a lot.
Well, I mean, if they're gonna pick one movie, at least they picked one of the
Yeah,
good ones.
they picked the best one probably.
All right, well, yeah, I agree with all you guys. I think that this is definitely an S tier film.
Wow, that's our first S tier.
Well deserved.
Phenomenal, phenomenal movie.
All right, well, next up we have the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie.
Well, speaking of phenomenal movies,
Yeah, absolutely. This has such a great cast of characters. Chris Pratt is awesome as Star-Lord. I like Zoe Saldana as Gamora. Dave Bautista is awesome as Drax. I mean, come on. Rocket, probably my favorite character of the five. Groot's also very memorable. Yeah, I just really like this movie a lot. I honestly like this more than the original Avengers movies, and that's probably an unpopular opinion, but I'm kind of stuck between an A tier or an S tier with this one, but yeah, it's definitely one of the better MCU films in my opinion.
I love it. I can't complain. Guardians of the Galaxy is one of my favorite. I might be a little biased because I cosplay Gamora, and I think it's one of my better alien girl cosplays. And anytime that I get to play her for a show or for a party or just TikToks, it's as much as I don't get to show too much emotion, it's still fun to do. And I love being around. I just love it. It's a really good movie.
This is one of my favorite Marvel movies. I love that they made a comic book series like that no one really read into like one of the best movies of all time. Not all time. I mean, one of the best superhero movies of all time for sure. I think the team as itself, Peter, Gamora, Drax, Rocket, and Groot. I feel like that's such a unique group to put together, and it's fun to watch them have like banter and all that. Also, the world building is insane. Like we see a celestial head that like everyone lives in.
Hmm.
The only thing I have criticism about this is the villain. I don't think Ronan was that. Yeah, I don't think it was that great.
Eh.
I'd still put it S tier though.
I would give it for that, I'd give it maybe like a high A, low S.
Also, we can't forget about the soundtrack.
I was gonna
That's
say,
true.
how have we gone this long without talking about one of the best soundtracks in film history? Really great movie, and like how Blue talked about, on paper, this movie should not be anywhere near as good as it is. It's
Hmm.
a comic series that not a lot of people had heard of. It's a very weird cast of characters. Between the cast's chemistry, James Gunn's direction and writing, really good special effects, acting, and a phenomenal soundtrack, it just comes together and it works so damn well. It's got to be at least A, if not S.
Let's do it here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, next up we have Avengers Age of Ultron. Now, I'm not gonna lie, of all four Avengers movies, I think this is my least favorite. I don't think it's bad, don't get me wrong. I do like James Spader as Ultron. Paul Bettany was really great as Vision. I like the introduction of Elizabeth Olsen as the Scarlet Witch. Aaron Taylor Johnson, I think, did a decent job as Quicksilver. And yeah, I think it's a decent movie. I don't consider it better than the first one or any of the other ones, but I think it's a solid sequel in my opinion.
I like it. I think it's good. I think it's a good setup. I think that they killed Pietro too fast. That
No pun
I
intended.
no it didn't. But that was my only stipulation as a young teen watching it was I didn't watch it again for a while because I was really mad about them killing him. But I think it's a solid movie.
I agree with you, Cade. This is probably my least favorite of the quadrilogy. I think they spend maybe a little too much time with the Avengers kind of bickering with each other. But like you said, I love Vision in this movie. I like how they introduced Scarlet Witch. I did not think she was going to become as important of a character as she does further down the line. I thought the action was really good. I really liked Ultron. I especially liked how sinister James Spader's voice was as Ultron. But yeah, I don't know. Something about this one, it didn't feel quite as impactful as the first one, and it didn't have the emotion, in my opinion, of the third and fourth one.
Also, I think they spent too much time on the farm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no argument on that.
I'm willing to give it more of a B tier ranking. I mean, again, I don't think it's bad by any means, or it's still a solid movie, but yeah, I'm willing to give it more of a B tier. I don't think it's A tier worthy.
I was gonna say B or C.
Again, still, it's good. It's just not amazing.
Ultron was cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
He was
I love
really
how we all
cool.
basically thought Ultron was cool.
So B tier.
Yeah,
Yeah, B tier.
All right, well, next up we have the original Ant-Man. I think that this is actually a very good movie in the MCU. I think Paul Rudd's phenomenal in this movie. I really like Michael Douglas. I like his chemistry with Wasp, or Hope at least. I think that I think it's a good movie. I don't necessarily love the villain, Darren Cross. I mean, I don't think he's a bad villain by any means. I just think he's kind of forgettable. Sometimes I think he's kind of a generic villain, but I still think the movie overall is decent.
Paul Rudd carries this movie on charm alone. When I heard he was cast as Ant-Man, I'm like, that is a perfect casting choice. I like Paul Rudd in this. I love Michael Douglas as this kind of like grumpy former superhero who has to learn to embrace his new kind of idiot son-in-law, basically. I love Ti and Michael Pena. I liked Hope in this. I thought the action was pretty good. But much like you, I cannot stand Darren Cross as the villain, and he somehow gets even worse.
Yeah, we'll get to that eventually, Andrew. I know how bad you want to talk about that.
If I'm gonna be honest, I didn't watch this one.
Okay.
Um, but I do like Paul Rudd as Ant-Man. It just is like I just didn't watch it, so I have no opinions on it.
All right, and that's totally fine. Blue, do you have anything you want to add?
This is a fun movie to watch when you're bored. It's a good one. Good characters, good. The villain, Yellow Jacket, not so much. I do like the ending scene where they fight on the Thomas the Tank Engine. I feel like that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was pretty solid.
I think the thing with Darren Cross, it's kind of something that a lot of people have pointed out about the MCU. He's another villain where in the first movie, the villain is just the evil counterpart of the hero, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's a pretty good point, actually.
Again, I still think it's a good movie, don't get me wrong, but I would give it a B tier.
Yeah, I think B is a good spot.
Yeah, I'd say B as well.
Again, it's not the upper echelons of the truly great MCU movies, but it's certainly not in the nadir.
All right, well, next up we have Captain America Civil War.
I liked it. My only thing was the hype for it, like waiting for it to come out. It felt like there was just too much hype for it. Or not too much, that people overhyped it and then it came out and it was like it was a really good movie and all these characters came together, but it felt like that was the only thing, was all these characters coming together, fighting at the airport, and then Cap and Iron Man fighting.
Here's a question for you, Myka. Are there too many characters in this movie?
That's a good question. I think that story-wise, yeah. I think that it's again one of those very rushed, let's get everyone we can, but not it only give them like 2 seconds of explanation as to why we know about them and why we're calling them in, if that makes sense. I can see from not that I've worked in a studio, but if I were thinking like a studio standpoint, okay, we're going to have all these people in one movie and see how that goes, see if it takes off. Then we'll branch off and do their own movies. It's basically what they did of let's introduce everyone. Okay, we're going to give Spider-Man his own movie. We're going to give Black Panther his own movie, stuff like that. But I feel like rewatching it is fun now because I've seen all the other ones and I've seen their origin stories and understand from a cinematic viewpoint, not talking about comics, but understand why they're coming together and why they're fighting for those sides. But not knowing them, and especially like Ant-Man too, not knowing who the heck these people are and they're coming to help Captain America or they're coming to help Iron Man. It's like, well, why are you picking? I don't understand why you're picking sides. So I feel like it's one of those where if the other movies came out first, not too many characters. I think this would be a perfect amount of characters, but not knowing from the MCU standpoint where they're coming from, not knowing their origin in the MCU, it's too many characters to keep track of.
Well, I definitely can see where Mika's coming from because they do squeeze a lot into this movie because I think a lot of people forget, oh yeah, this movie starts with, Crossbones dying. And, he was a pretty big deal in Winter Soldier. And then obviously you got the Sokovia Accords and then the breakdown of the Avengers. I think to kind of counteract Mika's point about there being too many characters, I think that was necessary because you needed to kind of needed that split in the Avengers so that Infinity War could happen and end how Infinity War does because they are so fractured down the middle.
It is a good setup. I agree.
I mean, I really still like this movie. I thought it lived up to the hype because this is basically just Avengers 2.5 when you think about it. I thought the spectacle of the airport fight was enough to kind of carry the movie on its own. And I mean, you got to give credit for introducing both Black Panther and Spider-Man in this movie, two characters who would go on to be very important down the line.
Yeah, and I'm not going to lie, I actually think that this has, again, this is probably an unpopular opinion, but I actually think this has Chadwick Boseman's best performance as T'Challa, in all honesty.
That's actually really true. Even his suit's
Yeah.
probably the best I've ever seen.
Yeah, before they added all the extra colors.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like the introduction of Black Panther. I like the introduction of Tom Holland Spider-Man. He's one of my favorite things about the movie.
Say, this isn't a Captain America film. That's all I'm gonna say for that.
That's a good point.
Because I know you were saying that there's too many characters. If you look at it, like let's say it was titled Avengers Civil War, I feel like then all the characters would be more justified, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but
I get it. I got you.
yeah.
I'm picking up what you're laying down there.
Yeah.
I honestly think Iron Man has more screen time in this movie than Cap does.
But yeah, I think so too. Also, why was Bucky ordering plums?
Yeah, what the hell was up with that?
Why is he in Romania?
I mean, I think it's still a good movie. I think it's more of I know a lot of people rank it as an S or an A tier film, but I think it's more B tier in all honesty. But that's just me. What about you guys?
I'd say it's either high B or low A because again, it really does have some great moments to it. I can feel I understand where people are coming from. We're saying it's maybe a little too stuffed.
I'd say A. I really like the ending with the Steve and Tony fighting about friendship, I guess. He's like, "Oh, you were my friend," and all that stuff. I thought that was really good. Like the emotional stakes in that movie kind of hit. But Zemo as a villain kind of pissed me off.
Honestly, I liked Zemo more in the Falcon and Winter Soldier TV series.
Yeah, same.
So what are we thinking? B tier?
I think B.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
All right, B tier it is. Well, next up we have the original Doctor Strange. I think that this is a good movie. Benedict Cumberbatch, I think, is fantastic. Mads Mikkelsen, I think, is good. I think it's a good origin story for the character. And I say that as a guy who's kind of gotten a little jaded with origin stories in superhero movies at this point. I do think that this movie pulls it off really well. And yeah, I think it's definitely a solid film.
I think I've watched it 1.5 times, to be honest with you. I love Doctor Strange. It's a good origin, but I feel like he does so much better in other movies, especially Avengers movies. But it's not like my least favorite. I think I would put it in like B, to be honest.
That's kind of what I'm leaning towards because I really like this movie. I actually saw it opening night. I think it was one of the first movies I ever saw opening night. Benedict Cumberbatch does a great job portraying both the arrogant and also emotionally vulnerable sides to Doctor Strange too. Like when he is truly at his lowest point and trying to just desperately get his life back. I liked Mads Mikkelsen in it, but I don't think they gave Caecilius really enough screen time. One thing that this movie does have going for it is some very imaginative action sequences.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I thought a pretty solid movie.
I think that this is one that I would want to rewatch. I'm in California, so it's legal. Rewatch High. I just want to put that out there. But I think that it would be extremely trippy. And I think I'd like it a little bit more because it's got such great visual effects.
Oh God, I had never even thought about it from that angle.
Hey.
I think this is a pretty solid movie. Like probably B tier. I think it's a solid introduction to the magical universe of Marvel. I feel like they did really strong there. The villain, I don't know, Marvel has a trend with just throwing villains away. I mean, yeah, I mean it has to happen, but this one's just forgettable. Probably leaning towards C, maybe B.
I think it's more B tier film, but that's just me.
So we're thinking, yeah, I'm thinking B. Again, I really like it, but it's not, again, the upper echelons like some of the stuff we're about to be getting to in the next few minutes.
I'd say B.
All right, B tier it is. All right, next up we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I think that this is a decent movie. I think it's a decent sequel to the first one. I like Kurt Russell in it. I think he's really good. Again, all the actors are great at what they do. Although, I don't know about you guys, but plot-wise, I think that this is definitely weaker than the first one.
Yeah, I think the whole movie's a bit weaker than the original. Don't get me wrong, it is still fantastic in my opinion. Just didn't quite feel as well put together as the first one, if that makes any sense. Might have felt weirdly a little rushed, in my opinion.
It felt like a generic sequel, if that makes sense. You know how you have the awesome original and then they come out with a sequel and it obviously they didn't ruin it, but it was just like, okay, this is cool, I guess.
But I will say, credit where it is due. It's a Marvel movie that actually kills off a character that doesn't come back, and it does
That's
give us
true.
that very emotional Yondu send off.
Yeah.
Plus, this movie gets bonus points because it features literally my all-time favorite song on the soundtrack, which is "The Chain" by Fleetwood Mac.
Fleetwood Mac is my favorite band of all time.
But yeah, no, kind of just again probably a B tier for me because again it's good. I liked Kurt Russell as Ego the Living Planet. I like the twist of him revealing that, hey Peter, yeah, I've been trying to bond with you, but it's because I need you as a human battery.
Definitely a lot weaker than compared to the first. I don't feel like it was as strong or as impactful. Still funny, good visuals, great soundtrack. Ego is pretty cool. I mean, not as compelling as other Marvel villains. A lot of the stories in the movie were very like personal arcs. So like Gamora had one, Rocket had one, Yondu had one. It was just all kind of like separate stories in a movie. I don't know if that makes sense. Overall, I'd probably give it like a B.
Yeah, I think that this is just me, but I think they spent too much time kind of just hanging around on the planet, not really doing much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
I think it's still a decent movie. I'm willing to give it more of a B tier.
God, we're getting a lot of B tiers.
The introduction of Mantis was really great.
Yes, that I agree with.
Yeah, no, I love Mantis in this movie. Again, talk about perfect casting. And speaking of perfect casting, we come to one that I think we all can agree is an S tier. Spider-Man Homecoming, a movie we never thought we'd see in the MCU.
It's a very bold statement.
Well, okay, when you're dealing with like multiple studio politics, there's a lot of strings attached. I never thought we'd actually see a solo Spider-Man movie in the MCU, let alone one that was as good as Homecoming, in my opinion.
Yeah, I really like this movie. I think this is definitely one of the best Spider-Man movies in live action. I think Michael Keaton's awesome in this movie. I love his performance as Vulture. I really love Tom Holland in this movie. I think he's great. Robert Downey Jr., I think, is good in this movie too, even though he's not in it a whole bunch, but I think that's still good. I actually really like the fact that Peter loses the suit halfway through the movie and then he has to go back to his old suit. I think that that was a good challenge for him as a character, especially in that moment where he's trapped under all the rubble and he's going, "Come on, Spider-Man," and he's just lifting it up. That, I think, is one of the best moments, not just in the movie, but in any Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, I think it was a pretty solid movie. I honestly, I loved the casting for it, but I have a favorite Spider-Man and he's not in the MCU, so I will comment no further.
I mean, I absolutely love this movie. I actually saw it twice in theaters. I love Tom Holland as Spider-Man. I love the fact we have a Spider-Man who actually looks like he belongs in high school.
Fair.
I love the mentor-mentee relationship between Iron Man and Spider-Man. I thought Michael Keaton was an awesome Vulture. With had these really sinister kind of chilling moments too when he wasn't even in the Vulture suit. Great action, again, great chemistry, well written, well directed.
Also, a good twist finding out that he's actually Liz's dad.
Yeah, that was a solid twist too. Yeah, just a really, really good movie. And we've had some really good Spider-Man movies, and I will argue that this stands up to the best of them.
I'm kind of stuck between S or A, but what do you guys think?
I gotta say yes.
I would say S tier. I mean, it's the perfect formula for like a Spider-Man movie. It needs to be lighthearted and kind of grounded towards New York City. I do despise that they didn't put enough swinging in this movie, like throughout New York, but
Yeah.
they still did a great job. S tier. That's all I wanted to say.
I mean, yeah, I'd say A or S, so if you guys are all S, let's go S tier.
S tier it is. Next up, we have Thor Ragnarok. Andrew, do you want to start off this one?
Another movie I absolutely love. This, in my opinion, this is when the MCU really hit its stride of really great back-to-back-to-back movies. This is the one where that finally took Thor and made me care about him, in my opinion, because I thought the first one was all right. Was not a huge fan of the Dark World, like we talked about. I think I've seen it once. This one, I love that they made Thor the underdog. I love his big brother, little brother kind of dynamic with the Hulk, how they kind of just constantly push each other's buttons. I thought Valkyrie was a great foil to Thor as well. I thought Korg and the rest of the gladiators were a great, fun supporting cast. And I'm sorry, any movie that features Led Zeppelin's Immigrant Song in such a great action sequence is S tier to me. Oh, plus Kate Blanchett is Hela, one of the better, in my opinion, better MCU villains.
I also think that the big showdown during Ragnarok is also pretty awesome.
Yeah, I also like the twist of, oh, it's not about stopping Ragnarok, it's actually about starting Ragnarok.
Yeah, I love this one. This is one of my favorite Thor movies. Korg is my spirit animal. He wakes me up in the morning every once in a while talking about ghosts. Yeah, I set him as my alarm. I think it's a really great movie, and it's somebody, because of the Wicked movie coming out, somebody had posted online saying that Thor Ragnarok is the Wicked of the MCU because you've got somebody green and somebody blonde defeating Jeff Goldblum. And I just thought that was hilarious. And I love Jeff Goldblum in this. It was one of those that I didn't think I was going to like him as this villain, but I really did. And Hela, I love her. She's one of my dream cosplays, but if I'm gonna do her, I want to do her right. I'm gonna make it from scratch and like, you know what I mean? But I think that this is an S tier for me.
That headpiece is going to be fun to try to make.
That's why I haven't made it yet.
See, I look at this movie a bit differently since Love and Thunder came out, but I'm trying to take that aspect away from it. But I feel like this was a really good movie. I feel like this is like the definition of this movie is literally colorful and bright, which I love. Music was great. Hella was scary but hot.
Wow, Blue, tell us how you really feel.
I mean, accurate.
Yeah. Thor and Hulk was a great combination. It was like a buddy cop duo, but one of them is stupid.
Plus, they also have, in my opinion, one of the best showdowns when they're fighting in the arena.
Yeah.
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 Oh, how did I forget about that? Yeah.
And then when Hulk was pointing out something out the window and you see his green cheeks just hanging out.
Yep.
Anyways,
Thank you.
this
Yep.
this is an S tier movie.
Yeah, and it also has one of my favorite jokes in the MCU. When Thor's trying to access the ship, he goes, Thor, son of Odin, Thor god of thunder, strongest Avenger. Oh, Point Break.
Yeah.
Also, am I the only one who thinks that Thor actually looks better with the short kind of buzz cut he gets in this movie than he ever did with the long hair?
Yeah, I agree.
Hmm.
We say an S tier for Ragnarok?
Yeah, I'll put it in Esther.
Yeah.
All right, well, next up we have Black Panther. Yeah, I think that this is a good movie. So I think it has one of the best villains in the MCU, honestly. I thought Killmonger was a great villain. I loved his development throughout the movie. I just really liked Michael B. Jordan in the role. I think Chadwick Boseman's good in the movie too. I know a lot of people rank it as one of the best MCU films. I personally don't agree, but I think it's still good. Where does it sit with you?
I think it's good. I really liked it. I really liked him as Black Panther. I think that it was cool. The car scene was pretty sick, not gonna lie. I think, but it's one of those ones that I've watched only a couple of times. So it's more of a B or a C for me.
I'm literally humming the soundtrack. Yeah, no, I like this movie. The villain is top tier in superhero movies. I think the only criticism I have is the visual effects were kind of lacking, especially in the last scene with the trains. It was just two PlayStation 2 characters fighting.
And the rhinos?
Yeah.
Yeah, that too. But the cast is great.
Here's a question though. Is it one of the best superhero films ever made? Because a lot of people think that it is.
Mm,
No,
no.
no, I wouldn't go that far.
I'd say it maybe cracks the top 20. I wouldn't go as far as say top 10. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still really liked it. Again, I really liked all the characters. Again, Killmonger is a phenomenal villain. I loved Shuri. I loved M'Baku. I thought Chadwick Boseman did a really good job as T'Challa, as this kind of inexperienced king who is trying to, live up to his father's legacy while also. I also love the theme of this movie of the sins of the fathers affecting the sons.
Hmm.
Again, like Blue said, not a huge fan of some of the CG in this movie. Some of it looks really bad. Again, it will get worse in the MCU, but again, we're revving up for that. But yeah, no, I still really liked it. Again, really good acting across the board. I'd say probably A tier for me.
So I'll probably put it about A tier, B tier, around those two.
I would say
All right, yeah, I'll give it an A tier. All right, well, next up we have Avengers Infinity War. Of all four Avengers movies, this is definitely my favorite. Just right off the bat, I think it's an S tier film. I love how it incorporates all the different characters and not just having so many characters, but doing it well, in my opinion. So that's a part that I really like. Honestly, my favorite thing about this movie is Josh Brolin as Thanos. He was so great in the role, perfect casting. I really liked his arc throughout the movie. And one thing that I also love, which I think we don't get too often in superhero movies and just movies in general, I love how it's a movie where the villain wins. I think that's just always a fascinating way to conclude a movie. And yeah, it does end on a cliffhanger, which I'm usually not the biggest fan of, but yeah, I definitely love it for that.
Oh, I completely agree. I think that this is one of those movies where, because we've had all the, well, I would say a majority, not all, a majority of the origin story movies coming first. This is a really good and well-rounded plethora of superhero characters in a single movie, because they're not entirely trying to, it doesn't feel like they're trying to squish everything in. It feels like it's very natural. It's flowing. This is the not end all, because there's Endgame, but it's like this is it. This is where everybody comes together and people have had their arcs and they've had their learning curves and they're still going through it, because that's what it means to be human. It's never ending kind of growth, but it doesn't feel like it's being rushed to explain why that person is here or why they're helping, you know?
Yeah, I don't really have too much to add to the discourse. again, really, really good movie. Benefits from the fact that the villain wins. Really good action sequences from both the battle with Thanos on whatever that. Did they ever name that planet where like Iron Man's Captain America and the
Titan.
Guardians? But was it Titan?
I'm pretty sure it's Titan.
Okay, it probably is Titan. But that, and then of course you got the Battle of Wakanda with Thor's iconic entrance, riding the Thunderbolt, basically. Yeah, really good movie. And again, that emotional gut punch of an ending, knowing that you got to wait a full year plus for it to come, for the next one to come out.
For sure, S tier. I will argue against it if anyone else says A or B. It's going to be S tier. Thanos, probably the best MCU villain. I love that his mission is personal and it's driven by it's also kind of political in a way. And then compared to Civil War, this one balances out the massive scale of how many characters you can have in a movie and they keep it nice and engaging, right? You have the Iron Man side, then you have the Cap side. They balance it really nicely. That's what I really enjoy. Also, the action scenes were really good, especially in Wakanda.
And I mean, you got to give credit for any time a movie ends with the villain actually winning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I think it's a really good villain because hearing Blue talk about that just makes me think a lot of the other villains are driven by I hate you because I hate you, and he's just like I want to rule. I just want to rule. This is for me. I don't know who the hell you guys are. This is for me. It's not like any other villain I've seen that I can think of that it was just like, why are you doing this? Well, because I can and I want to. It's my thing. Not because I hate this one superhero in particular and now everybody's coming to defeat me because of that. It's like, no, I'm gonna make the world a better place, even though it's not. It is in his eyes.
Yeah, and I think it's fascinating how, he had the power to wipe out literally everything, but the fact that he was only willing to do 50%, I think that says a lot about his character too.
Yeah. A misunderstood villain, if you will.
Was he right though?
Okay, we're not getting into that debate.
Yeah, I think it's definitely an S tier film, so yeah. S tier.